Something is shifting right now in the unseen realm. And if your spirit is awake, you can feel it pressing against your life. God is about to amaze you, and before the amazement comes, there is always a stirring, a holy tension, a divine alert that tells your soul, brace yourself. This is not hype. This is not emotion. This is the unmistakable sound of God moving before the evidence shows up. Many people miss their moment because they treat divine warnings like background noise. But today, your heart is being summoned to attention. God is speaking to those who are ready, and readiness is not about perfection, it is about expectation. There are seasons when God comforts you, and there are seasons when God confronts you, but then there are rare moments when God prepares you for astonishment. This is one of those moments. You have prayed prayers that even you forgot about. You whispered requests when you were tired, when hope felt fragile, when strength was low. You assumed time had buried those words, but God does not forget what was spoken in faith, even if it was spoken through tears. Heaven keeps records that earth cannot erase. What you thought was delayed was actually being developed. What you thought was denied was being refined. God has been working in ways you could not see, arranging outcomes you could not imagine, aligning people you have not met yet, and timing events with precision that only divine wisdom can achieve. Do not judge what God is about to do by what you are currently seeing. Sight is a poor prophet. Circumstances are unreliable witnesses. God does not announce His greatest works through visible evidence. He announces them through spiritual unease, through restlessness that pushes you to pray more, through a hunger that refuses to be satisfied with routine faith. If you feel an inner urgency, if you feel as though something is about to break open, it is because God is signaling transition. Before God elevates, He agitates. Before God amazes, He stretches your capacity to believe. Expansion always feels uncomfortable before it feels victorious. There are people listening who have been faithful in obscurity. You showed up when no one applauded. You obeyed when obedience was costly. You trusted God when the outcome was uncertain. You held on when quitting would have been easier. Heaven has been watching every unseen act of faithfulness. God is not unjust to forget your labor, your patience, your endurance. What is coming will not be small, and it will not be subtle. It will be unmistakable. When God amazes you, even your critics will be forced into silence. When God moves, explanations become unnecessary. You must understand this clearly. Amazement is not random. God does not surprise people who refuse to believe. Divine astonishment comes to those who dare to trust God beyond logic. Faith is not pretending reality doesn't exist. Faith is declaring that God is greater than the reality you see. Right now, God is stretching your expectation. He is challenging the limits you placed on Him based on past disappointments. You learn to protect yourself by lowering your hopes, but that coping mechanism is about to be confronted. God did not call you to survive. God called you to witness His power, and power always disrupts comfort. Some of you are standing at the edge of something you cannot explain. Doors are closing that you tried to keep open. Paths are ending that once felt safe. Do not panic. God often clears space before He fills it. What feels like loss may actually be divine evacuation. God removes what can no longer go with you into the next season. You are not being punished. You are being repositioned. When God amazes you, it will not look like your old life upgraded. It will look like a completely new dimension of living. There is a divine acceleration coming. What used to take years will happen in moments. What seemed stuck will suddenly move. What was delayed will arrive with force. But acceleration requires balance. If God moved too quickly while your spirit was unprepared, the blessing would crush you instead of carrying you. That is why God has been strengthening your inner life. That is why you were pressed, challenged, and stretched. Strength precedes surprise. Stability precedes suddenness. God never releases weight without building capacity. You must guard your mouth in this season. Words shape expectation, and expectation determines reception. Do not speak defeat while standing on the edge of deliverance. Do not confess fear while God is releasing favor. Align your language with divine intention. Speak as someone who knows God is faithful, even when outcomes are not yet visible. Faith-filled words create spiritual pathways. Complaints close doors that faith was meant to open. God responds to alignment, not desperation. There is also a call to let go of bitterness. You cannot carry yesterday's wounds into tomorrow's wonder. Resentment hardens the heart, and a hardened heart cannot be amazed. Forgiveness is not saying what happened was acceptable. Forgiveness is saying God is greater than what happened. When you release bitterness, you make room for blessing. When you let go of revenge, you position yourself for restoration. God will not pour fresh oil into a contaminated vessel. Purity of heart precedes power of manifestation. Some of you have been asking God for signs, but God has been asking you for trust. Signs follow belief. They do not replace it. If God showed you everything in advance, you would rely on information instead of faith. Faith is the currency of heaven. Trust unlocks what logic cannot access. Right now, God is inviting you to step beyond what makes sense. Obedience in uncertainty is one of the highest forms of worship. When you move without full clarity, you declare that God's wisdom exceeds your understanding. Do not underestimate the significance of this moment. There are divine appointments ahead that will change the trajectory of your life. Conversations that seem ordinary will carry extraordinary consequences. Encounters that appear accidental will be strategic. God orchestrates with precision. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is random. Every delay, every detour, every disappointment has been working together toward a greater purpose. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are exactly where preparation meets promise. There will be resistance before release. Expect it. Opposition often intensifies when breakthrough is near. The pressure you feel is not a sign to retreat. It is a sign to stand firm. God never abandons those who remain faithful under strain. Endurance is proof of trust. Perseverance refines faith. When you refuse to quit, you align yourself with divine completion. God finishes what He starts, and what He is about to start in you will leave you in awe. Be careful not to compare your journey with others. God's timing is personal. What He does for one may not look like what He does for another, but it will be perfect for you. Comparison breeds impatience, and impatience weakens faith. Focus on obedience, not outcomes. Focus on trust, not timelines. When amazement comes, it will arrive right on time, not late and not early. Your past does not disqualify you. Your mistakes do not cancel divine intention. God specializes in restoration. He rebuilds what was broken. He revives what was buried. He redeems what was wasted. Do not allow shame to silence your expectation. Humility attracts grace, and grace makes room for miracles. The same God who sustained you through survival is now preparing you for overflow. There is a sacred discipline God is awakening within you now, the discipline of expectancy. Expectancy is not wishful thinking, it is disciplined trust. It is the decision to live as though God is faithful even before the evidence arrives. Many people believe God in theory, but hesitate in practice. They speak faith, but plan for disappointment. They pray, but secretly prepare for failure. That inner contradiction weakens spiritual authority. God is calling you into agreement. where what you believe, what you speak, and how you live align under His sovereignty. When alignment happens, amazement follows. God is also confronting hidden agreements you made with limitation. At some point, pain taught you to settle. Disappointment trained you to lower your vision. Survival became your goal instead of obedience. But survival is not the same as purpose. God did not preserve you just to exist. He preserved you to manifest His intention. The moment you stop negotiating with fear is the moment momentum begins. Fear loses its grip when obedience takes precedence. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear decide. There is a sacred exchange happening right now. God is asking for your trust, and in return, He is offering direction. Trust without direction leads to confusion, but direction without trust leads to resistance. God desires cooperation, not coercion. He leads gently but firmly. When you follow willingly, the journey becomes lighter, even when the terrain is difficult. Resistance creates strain. Surrender creates flow. Flow accelerates progress. Pay attention to how God has been sharpening your discernment. You no longer react the way you used to. You pause, you reflect, you pray. That is growth. Emotional impulsiveness gives way to spiritual sensitivity. Sensitivity allows you to hear what others miss. In a noisy world, discernment is power. God reveals strategies in stillness. He releases wisdom in quiet obedience. Those who rush miss detail. Those who wait receive clarity. There is also a divine recalibration of your priorities. What once consumed your energy now feels empty. What once felt urgent now feels insignificant. This is not confusion. This is clarity forming. God is adjusting your appetite. When appetite changes, direction changes. You no longer chase what drains you. You pursue what strengthens you. Desire refined becomes destiny clarified. God is teaching you to walk by instruction rather than impulse. Instruction builds endurance. Impulse seeks instant relief. Relief fades, but instruction sustains. God's guidance may not always feel exciting, but it is always accurate. Accuracy matters more than speed. Arriving whole is better than arriving fast. God is not impressed by haste. He honors faithfulness. You are also being invited into deeper responsibility for your inner life. External success without internal order creates collapse. God is fortifying your character so that your future will not intimidate you. Intimidation comes when opportunity exceeds preparation. God prepares before He presents. When preparation is complete, opportunity feels challenging but not overwhelming. Confidence grows from knowing God has equipped you. There will be moments when obedience isolates you, saint and firm. Approval is fleeting, but alignment is eternal. God's affirmation outweighs public opinion. When you are aligned with God, even rejection becomes redirection. Even delays become instruction. Even closed doors become protection. Perspective transforms pain into purpose. God is also reminding you that obedience does not always feel logical. Faith rarely consults comfort. Obedience often requires movement before clarity. That is where trust is proven. If you needed full understanding to obey, trust would be unnecessary. God reveals enough to move, but not enough to control. Control belongs to Him. Peace comes from accepting that truth. There is a call now to renew your commitment to integrity. Integrity sustains blessing. Compromise erodes authority. Small concessions lead to large consequences. God's amazement carries weight, and weight demands structure. Integrity is structure for favor. It keeps blessing from becoming burden. It protects you when pressure increases. You must also prepare for seasons where God's activity feels quiet. Silence does not mean absence. Silence often means God is working at a depth that does not announce itself. Roots grow in darkness. Foundations form underground. What emerges strong begins unseen. Do not abandon faith during quiet seasons. Quiet seasons often precede visible expansion. God is also awakening gratitude within you, not gratitude based on outcomes, but gratitude based on trust. Gratitude shifts perspective. It moves focus from what is lacking to who is faithful. Gratitude disarms entitlement and strengthens humility. Humility attracts grace, and grace empowers endurance. A grateful heart remains teachable. A teachable heart remains usable. As amazement approaches, temptation will attempt to distract you. Distractions often appear harmless, even appealing. Not everything that feels good is God. Discernment protects destiny. Stay alert, stay prayerful, stay grounded. God's path may be narrow, but it is secure. Wide paths invite many opinions but little direction. God is also calling you to speak life over yourself consistently. Silence in the face of fear gives fear permission. Declare truth even when your voice shakes. Faith grows through expression. When you speak what God has promised, you reinforce belief. Words are seeds. Speak wisely, sow intentionally. You are entering a phase where obedience will require boldness. Boldness is not aggression, it is confidence rooted in trust. Timidity shrinks potential. Bold faith honors God. When you step forward in obedience, heaven responds. Movement activates provision. Stillness has its time, but stagnation is not stillness, it is avoidance. God is also aligning timing. You may feel urgency, but God operates with precision. Precision produces excellence. Excellence glorifies God. Trust His timing. Timing determines impact. Early arrival confuses. Late arrival misses. Right timing multiplies effect. God's timing is never accidental. Remain committed to prayer, not as ritual, but as relationship. Relationship sustains resilience. When challenges arise, relationship anchors you. When success arises, relationship humbles you. God desires closeness more than performance. Performance exhausts, relationship empowers. You are not walking toward uncertainty, you are walking toward fulfillment. Uncertainty is only the space between promise and manifestation. God occupies that space. You are not alone in the waiting. You are being guided, strengthened, and refined. Every step matters. Every decision counts. What God is about to do will require maturity to manage and humility to maintain. Stay faithful, stay aligned, stay obedient. Let amazement find you prepared, not surprised. Let wonder deepen your trust, not inflate your pride. Let blessing, NG, strengthen your devotion, not replace it. And as the unfolding continues, you will recognize that the greatest amazement is not only what God does around you, but what He has accomplished within you, shaping you into someone who can carry His purpose with clarity, courage, and unwavering trust in God alone. There is another layer God is unfolding now, the discipline of memory. Not memory that traps you in regret, but memory that testifies to faithfulness. God wants you to remember correctly. Some people remember pain more vividly than provision, failure more clearly than rescue. That imbalance weakens courage. When you remember how God sustained you when you had no answers, your confidence for what lies ahead becomes steady. Remembrance is a spiritual weapon. It anchors you in truth when circumstances try to rewrite your story. You did not survive by chance. You were carried by intention. God is also teaching you how to wait without wasting. Waiting is not inactivity, it is preparation. In waiting, motives are purified, patience is strengthened, and dependence is deepened. Those who wait with trust do not stagnate, they mature. Impatience tries to escape discomfort, but patience extracts wisdom from it. God does not delay to frustrate you, He delays to fortify you. When you learn to wait well, you learn to receive well. There is a refining of ambition taking place. Ambition driven by insecurity seeks validation. Ambition surrendered to God seeks alignment. When ambition bows, purpose rises. God does not diminish your vision, He clarifies it. He removes the need to prove and replaces it with the desire to obey. When approval is no longer your fuel, endurance becomes possible. Obedience outlasts applause. Faithfulness survives obscurity. God rewards what endures. You are also being prepared to steward increase without losing simplicity. Complexity often grows with success, but simplicity preserves focus. God's power is not complicated, it is precise. As responsibilities multiply, return often to what is essential. Prayer, integrity, gratitude, humility. These are not elementary practices, they are sustaining forces. When life becomes demanding, simplicity becomes strength. God is sharpening your response to adversity. Instead of reacting with frustration, you are learning to respond with trust. Response reflects maturity. Reaction reveals fear. God equips those who pause long enough to listen before they act. Wisdom often arrives after restraint. Restraint protects direction. Direction protects destiny. There is also a warning wrapped in kindness. Do not romanticize struggle. Struggle teaches, but it is not the goal. God does not keep you in hardship to prove loyalty. He leads you through it to produce clarity. When seasons change, do not cling to what God has released. Gratitude honors the past. Obedience embraces the future. Transition requires courage. Courage grows from trust. God is aligning you with truth that demands action. Truth without action becomes information. Action transforms truth into testimony. When you act on what God reveals, understanding deepens. Revelation is progressive. Light increases with obedience. If you move with what you have, more will be given. Stagnation dims perception. Movement sharpens it. You must also prepare for prosperity with vigilance. Prosperity tests focus as much as adversity tests faith. When needs are met, dependence can weaken unless intention is renewed. Keep God central when comfort increases. Comfort can lull awareness if gratitude fades. Stay awake, stay reverent. Prosperity managed with humility becomes a tool for good. Prosperity managed with pride becomes a snare. God is strengthening your ability to forgive quickly and completely. Unforgiveness drains spiritual energy and clouds discernment. Forgiveness clears vision. It restores peace. It frees you from carrying what God never asked you to hold. Forgiveness is not forgetting, it is releasing the right to retaliate. God is the just judge. Trust Him with outcomes. Your role is obedience. There is an invitation to deepen your prayer life beyond requests into communion. Communion transforms perspective. When prayer becomes relationship, fear loses its voice. Relationship stabilizes faith. In closeness, direction becomes clearer. Courage becomes stronger, and peace becomes steady. God is near to those who seek Him sincerely. You're also learning to value consistency over intensity. Intensity burns bright but fades quickly. Consistency builds lasting impact. God honors steady faith. Daily obedience compounds into extraordinary outcomes. Small acts of faith, repeated faithfully, shape destiny. Do not underestimate the power of the ordinary. Surrender to God. God is reminding you that identity precedes assignment. Know who you are before you chase what you do. When identity is secure, assignment becomes clear. Confusion arises when activity replaces identity. Rest in who God has shaped you to be. From that rest, purpose flows naturally. There will be moments when God's instruction challenges your preferences. Preferences reflect comfort. Instruction reflects purpose. Choose purpose. Purpose carries meaning that comfort cannot provide. When purpose leads, sacrifice makes sense. When comfort leads, compromise follows. Choose wisely. God is also aligning mentors, wisdom, and correction around you. Correction is not condemnation, it is protection. Those who resist correction resist growth. Receive instruction with humility. Wisdom saves time. It prevents unnecessary pain. God uses counsel to preserve destiny. You are being trained to recognize divine timing in opportunity. Not every G.O.D. option is God's option. Discernment prevents distraction. Stay anchored. Measure opportunities by alignment, not appearance. God's will carries peace even when it requires courage. There is a deeper courage God is cultivating in you now, the courage to trust Him beyond outcomes. Many trust God for results, but few trust Him with process. Process humbles the soul. It strips away entitlement and builds resilience. God values who you are becoming as much as what you are receiving. When you embrace process, frustration loses power. Resistance fades when purpose becomes clear. God is not slow, He is intentional. Every step is measured, every pause is purposeful. God is also confronting the way you interpret silence. Silence does not mean refusal. Silence often means refinement. In silence, motives surface. In silence, patience is tested. In silence, trust proves its depth. Those who abandon faith in silence never see what sound was preparing. Stay attentive. Silence sharpens hearing. When God speaks after silence, direction carries clarity and authority. You are being taught to recognize divine order in apparent chaos. Chaos unsettles the unprepared, but it organizes opportunity for the discerning. God brings order from confusion, clarity from complexity, and direction from disorder. Do not fear upheaval. Upheaval often precedes establishment. When foundations are adjusted, structures become stable. God is reordering priorities, refining focus, and aligning your steps. There is a strengthening of spiritual stamina taking place. Short bursts of faith are not enough for long assignments. God builds endurance so you can carry responsibility without exhaustion. Stamina grows through consistent devotion, honest prayer, and disciplined obedience. When stamina is strong, pressure does not overwhelm. Pressure reveals capacity. God is increasing yours. God is also deepening your understanding of sacrifice. Sacrifice is not loss, it is investment. What you release in obedience returns in purpose. Sacrifice refines intention. It clarifies what truly matters. When sacrifice is embraced willingly, joy follows naturally. Joy rooted in obedience cannot be shaken by circumstance. You are learning to distinguish between urgency and importance. Urgency demands reaction. Importance demands discernment. God leads by importance. When you prioritize what God emphasizes, peace follows. When you chase urgency, anxiety grows. Discernment quiets noise. Focus strengthens direction. God is awakening a holy boldness in your prayer, not arrogance, but confidence anchored in trust. Bold prayer honors God's sovereignty. It acknowledges His power without presumption. When you pray boldly, you declare that God is able. When you pray humbly, you declare that God is wise. Both are necessary. Balance sustains faith. There is also a reminder to guard your inner dialogue. Thoughts shape perception. Perception shapes response. God's truth must govern your mind. Replace assumptions with prayer. Replace worry with trust. Replace doubt with remembrance. What you allow to dwell will eventually direct. Choose wisely. God is training you to stand firm without becoming rigid. Flexibility guided by conviction creates resilience. Rigidity resists growth. Conviction anchored in trust allows adaptation without compromise. God's guidance adjusts methods, not principles. Stay anchored while remaining responsive. You are also being prepared to celebrate without forgetting humility. Celebration honors God's work. Humility honors God's authority. Together they preserve alignment. When success arrives, remember dependence. When recognition comes, remember obedience. Gratitude keeps success from distorting perspective. God is refining your patience with people. People grow at different rates. Compassion reflects understanding. Understanding reflects maturity. God's patience with you becomes the measure of your patience with others. Extend grace. Grace multiplies peace. There is an awakening of responsibility toward truth. Truth must be lived, not just believed. Integrity transforms belief into witness. When your life reflects truth, credibility follows naturally. God uses credibility to extend influence. Influence increases responsibility. Responsibility demands humility. You are learning that obedience often requires quiet courage. Loud faith draws attention, but quiet faith builds endurance. God values faith that persists without applause. Faithfulness in private prepares you for stewardship in public. God entrusts more to those who handle little with care. God is also reminding you that rest is not weakness. Rest restores clarity. Rest renews strength. Rest acknowledges dependence. When you rest, you declare trust. Overwork driven by fear denies sovereignty. Balance honors God's design. There will be seasons when God asks you to step back so He can step forward. Yielding control invites intervention. Intervention brings resolution. Trust creates space for God's power to move without interference. Stay attentive to instruction. Stay responsive to correction. Stay anchored in prayer. The path ahead will require wisdom, courage, and consistency. God is not leading you into confusion, but into clarity. Each step forward confirms alignment. Each act of obedience strengthens trust. As you continue to walk with attentiveness and humility, the unfolding will reveal depth beyond expectation, purpose beyond imagination, and faith beyond measure, shaped steadily by the wisdom, authority, and faithfulness of God, who directs every step according to His perfect will. There is a sacred responsibility God is placing upon you now, the responsibility to trust Him, even when success begins to redefine your surroundings. Many can trust God in lack, but fewer can trust Him in abundance. When God begins to amaze you, the environment around you will change, expectations will rise, and pressure will increase. This is not a threat. It is an invitation to deeper reliance. God does not remove challenges when He blesses. He increases grace to meet them. Stay dependent. Dependence is not weakness, it is wisdom. God is also teaching you how to listen beyond words. Guidance does not always arrive as instruction. Sometimes it arrives as restraint. A pause can be as powerful as a command. When God restrains you, He's protecting your future. Impulsive steps can undo patient preparation. Learn to respect the pause. Stillness often carries instruction that movement would drown out. There is a refining of your emotional strength happening now. Emotional strength is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of response. God does not ask you to ignore emotion, but to submit it. When emotions are governed by trust, clarity replaces confusion. God's peace is not fragile, it is resilient. It remains steady even when circumstances fluctuate. You are also being trained to recognize divine favor without becoming dependent on validation. Favor opens doors, but validation must not become your anchor. Anchors belong to God alone. When approval becomes necessary, compromise becomes tempting. God's approval is sufficient. It steadies identity and strengthens resolve. Know whose voice matters most. God is expanding your understanding of obedience beyond action into attitude. Obedience with resentment weakens joy. Obedience with trust strengthens peace. God examines the heart as much as the hands. When attitude aligns with action, fulfillment follows. Alignment produces harmony within. There is also a call to deepen generosity, not just with resources, but with grace. Generosity of spirit transforms environments. It disarms hostility and invites cooperation. God gives freely and teaches His people to reflect that freedom. When generosity flows, scarcity loses influence. God is sharpening your ability to recognize when to speak and when to remain silent. Silence can be strategic. Words carry weight, and timing determines impact. Wisdom knows when restraint preserves peace and when truth must be voiced with courage. Ask for discernment. God grants it generously to those who seek sincerely. You are being prepared for moments when obedience requires standing alone. Solitude tests conviction. When consensus fades, commitment remains. God strengthens those who stand firm without applause. Courage built in solitude sustains leadership in public. God is also teaching you to interpret resistance correctly. Resistance does not always mean opposition. Sometimes it reveals significance. The greater the assignment, the greater the resistance. Do not retreat when resistance appears. Examine, pray, and proceed with wisdom. God equips those He sends. There is a purification of motive continuing within you. Motive determines outcome. When motive is pure, effort is sustained. God refines motive so that success does not distort purpose. Purpose rooted in trust remains steady regardless of scale. You are learning to value obedience over outcome. Outcome belongs to God, obedience belongs to you. When you focus on obedience, pressure lifts. God handles results with precision. Trust Him with completion. God is reminding you that humility attracts instruction. Instruction preserves direction. Direction ensures progress. Pride isolates. Humility connects. Stay teachable. Growth thrives in teachability. There will be times when God's instruction challenges cultural norms or popular opinion. Stand firm. Truth does not change to fit comfort. Comfort adjusts when truth is honored. God's wisdom outlasts trends and opinions. God is also strengthening your spiritual vision. Vision sees beyond immediate circumstances. Vision discerns purpose in delay and meaning in movement. When vision is clear, perseverance becomes possible. Ask God to keep your vision aligned with His will. You are being invited to deepen your commitment to righteousness, not as performance, but as devotion. Righteous living reflects trust. It declares that God's ways are sufficient. Integrity is not restrictive, it is liberating. It frees you from regret and preserves peace. God is preparing you to steward influence wisely. Influence magnifies character. What you carry internally will eventually be seen externally. Allow God to refine you now so that influence strengthens others rather than burdens them. there is also a reminder that God's amazement often unfolds in stages. Do not despise beginnings. Each stage carries instruction. Honor the process. Gratitude for each step invites continuation. Stay anchored, stay prayerful, stay obedient. Let trust govern your decisions and humility guard your heart. What lies ahead is not built on chance, but on careful preparation and divine wisdom. As you continue to walk attentively, you will recognize that every adjustment, every delay, every refinement was purposeful, leading you steadily into a place where amazement is not fleeting emotion, but enduring testimony, revealing the faithfulness, authority, and perfect guidance of God, who alone directs the path of those who trust Him fully. As you stand at this threshold, understand this with clarity and peace. What God has been doing within you is not preparation for survival, but preparation for stewardship. You are not being shaped for a moment. You are being shaped for a season. Every adjustment, every delay, every quiet refining was intentional. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was accidental. What felt like waiting was actually gaudy, God building depth, stability, and discernment so that when amazement arrives, it will not overwhelm you, but establish you. Remember this: God does not merely amaze to impress, He amazes to transform. The wonder that is coming is not only external, it is internal. It will change how you see, how you decide, how you trust, and how you walk forward. You will recognize that the greatest miracle is not just what God places in your hands, but who He has formed in your heart. Strength without pride, confidence without arrogance, faith without fear. That is divine workmanship. Stay grounded as doors open. Stay humble as momentum increases. Stay prayerful as responsibilities grow. Blessings managed without dependence on God become burdens, but blessings stewarded with humility become instruments of purpose. Let gratitude remain your posture. Let obedience remain your compass. Let trust remain your foundation. Do not rush the unfolding. God's timing protects the integrity of what He releases. What arrives at the right time carries peace. What arrives too early carries pressure. Trust that God knows when you are ready, even when your emotions say otherwise. He sees the whole picture, not just the moment you are standing in. When challenges arise, and they will, remember that resistance does not negate prosperity. Pressure does not cancel calling. Silence Presence does not mean absence. God remains present in every phase, guiding with precision and wisdom. Stand firm. Persevere without panic. Faithfulness is never forgotten. As you move forward, choose alignment over approval, obedience over comfort, and purpose over fear. Let your life become a quiet testimony that trust in God produces stability, clarity, and courage. You do not need to force what God is releasing. What is divinely appointed will arrive without striving. And when amazement comes, and it will receive it with reverence, steward it with integrity, and let it deepen your devotion rather than replace it. By Tambras and Nephites, walk forward with confidence, not because circumstances are certain, but because God is faithful. You are not walking into confusion. You are walking into fulfillment. Stay attentive. Stay surrendered. Stay faithful. The God who prepared you is the same God who will sustain you. And what He is unfolding will stand as lasting evidence not only of His power, but of His perfect faithfulness in your life.